Do you like wrestling? Do you ever watch wrestling?
No. Nope.
And The Rock said, whoa, 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 whoa. Because I'm still standing here, custom made, brother. Woo! And I mean custom made. From the alligators to the Ole Cassini right here. Ric Flair. There's only one.
We're not the kind of guys that say, we told you so, but we told you so.
Yeah, no thank you from the Young Bucks.
Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman.
You know who I am.
What's up, gang? Welcome to Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman, the podcast that breaks down the biggest stories in and out of the ring. My name is Mike Wellman. Thank you for hitting that play button. We appreciate you here. As always, it's good to be back. We are back after a brief hiatus. Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman has returned to break down, as I said, the biggest stories in and out of the ring. My name is Mike Wellman. I am your host. I am joined by a purveyor of high-quality wrestling opinions, the one and only wrestling fan Kris, a.k.a. the notorious KRS, a.k.a. the man on the other end of this Skype-type call on the internet. Wrestling fan Kris, you're welcome for that intro.
Thank you. Glad to be back together doing business like the professionals that we are.
Yeah, I'm glad we could do business here. I'm glad we could be professionals. Not a lot of people can these days. No. Yes, it's good to be back. Like I said, we had a hiatus. This is episode 68 of Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. What is Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman, if you had to tell your friends? Well, we are a podcast. And we are muting Kris because he's playing with his microphone. We are a podcast that seeks to inform and educate you on the world of pro wrestling as best we can as fans of pro wrestling. So on this episode, we are going to be talking about the men's war game match. I'm saying men's war game. I don't know if it's going to be a women's war game. Could be a Raw war game. Could be a SmackDown war game. Could be an NXT war game. Could be an NWA war game. I don't know. All I know is that that's about how many times Adam Pearce said the word games on Raw on Monday night before he announced war games. But yes, the War Games match is official. Cody, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn. Who else? Seth Rollins against the Judgment Day, now including J.D. McDonough. We're going to get to that. Bryan Danielson, injured, out with a broken orbital bone, also set for Wrestle Kingdom. So he's both out with an injury and scheduled to face Kazuchika Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. Jon Moxley also booked for Wrestle Kingdom. And in a match against Will Ospreay, talk is picking up about where Will Ospreay go next. And we're going to talk about that as well. And WWE last week, they finally released the Superfan, The Story of Vlad documentary on Peacock. So I was pumped for that, so I watched it right away and pumped to bring you my review of the Superfan documentary. And so are you there, wrestling fan Kris?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, so how was your time off from this podcast? I know we had our family Disney trip. That was pretty fun.
Yes, that was the highlight of it. Other than that, just working, and that makes me sad. But the vacation was great, and it was very nice to be there.
Yeah, so before we go any farther,
I'm on everything.
That's right. We need you to be kind, like, subscribe, and share. Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. You can find us on Facebook, Watch Wrestling Pod, Instagram, Watch Wrestling Podcast, We are on the app formerly known as Gold Dust, at W Wrestling Pod on X. You already know where to find the podcast. YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Find us, share the show, let people know. Yeah, and we look forward to not having any problems. Isn't that right, Kris?
That's right. I don't have any problems.
That's right.
You don't want them either.
Because you subscribe to the podcast.
Correct.
You don't want zero problems. That's why you got to be kind, subscribe, and like. Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. So yes, let us now get into some wrestling stuff here. Let's talk about the War Games. So first, Kris, most important question. What did you think of the way Adam Pearce announced the War Games on Raw?
So, like, I'm interested to see how you think, because I feel like, I don't know if you actually think it's corny or if you just are joking about it, but I kind of like it. You know, for me, it feels like, you know, like you said in the intro, he said games about 25 times and we knew it was going to happen. But I kind of like that stuff. You know, sometimes that's what you want. You want something to build and you know it's going to happen, and then it does happen. And Adam Pearce is just a pretty good performer doing that kind of hokey stuff. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I did mention that he said the word games quite a few times. He said, you guys want to play games? You want to play games? Blah, blah, blah. It was like, okay, say War Games, please.
I know.
But despite that, it was fine. I thought it was good. I like that they made it into something, you know. I mean, William Regal is back with the company. They could have pulled him out of wherever he's at, back in Gorilla and NXT or wherever he is.
I still think
for a one-time thing, but
I think we have to wait till January. I think he has a 1-year ban from TV, so we're almost there.
Oh, he can't be on TV, but he can be back in the company, right? Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyways, Adam Pearce. You know, when he made this announcement, I actually thought Adam Pearce needed something like this with the whole, now that he's the Raw general manager only instead of just being kind of a nebulous WWE official. You know, being Pat Patterson 2.0.
Yes.
He doesn't really, he's always come off as kind of like boring to me on TV. He makes the matches. He's got a logical reason for most of the things that happen. And it's just, there's nothing kooky or crazy about him. He's not like Commissioner Mick Foley. He's not like Commissioner Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, he's just kind of like, he's like missing something. And I felt like this kind of gave him just that first little thing where it kind of just looks into the camera in the middle of the ring and he goes, War Games.
That's great. You're right. That's awesome. And I think I remember the Sonya Deville stuff a few years ago. You could see that personality that Adam Pearce had shining through. And I think you're right. He finally needed something. And that clip is going to go around Twitter X and whatever. Just him staring and saying War Games. That's going to be around forever. And that's I'm glad for us all.
Yeah. I'm surprised with the teams we got. I know that, you know, now that War Games is presumably an annual thing at Survivor Series, I think there's going to be all the talk of who's going to be on the War Games team, and we'll get your thoughts on the lack of people on certain teams here. But we've got the Judgment Day on one side, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dirty Dom Mysterio, and Dirty JD McDonough taking on Cody Rhodes, who it's cool that he gets to be in a War Games match. I don't think he's been in one yet. Seth Rollins. So Cody and Seth teaming up. They don't like each other. I heard that was his shoot brother. So they say it. They're either working us or they don't like each other, but they're going to be on the same team. Along with main event Jey Uso, who does not need the bloodline at this point, Jey Uso. No. And Sami Zayn. So the good guys. This is like this generation's team of just the good guys. This is like Hogan, Luger, Sting. Just the good guys.
Yes, that's
two of them are friends. Cody and Jey Uso are friends. Are they now the former tag team champions?
Yes, former, yeah.
Right. So they're friends. I mean,
hey, Jay and Sammy have a rich, deep bloodline history. Come on.
Back and forth, you know, can they trust one another after their long history? I doubt that'll even get brought up.
No.
They're just the good guys. Ragtag group of good guys. But yes, going up against the Judgment Day. And, I thought there was going to be maybe a 3-team match here. Remember when WCW did the 3 teams one year? Or was it 2 years? They did 3 teams in the War Games. I mean, I was looking out there. I saw a team. Well, I really saw 4 teams because one of the teams could have just been those buff security guys. They could have had a War Games team.
That's some WCW probably would have done. So you're right.
But I definitely saw a solid War Games team out there in the chaos of Shane Helms, Daivari, Jason Jordan, and Adam Pearce. There's your 3rd War Games team right there. the agents.
The good guys, Judgment Day, and the agents. There you go.
Right, exactly. Get those guys in the match.
I mean, NXT did some 3-team War Games back in the day, so you never know.
Yeah, and I actually liked the way, not just with the whole War Games part of it, but I liked the chaos, because you've got the good guys, and they've been kind of just gravitating towards each other over the past few weeks on Raw. The good guys have, right? Like, inconspicuously. And then the Judgment Day, they just, at this point, they don't need a reason to want to get involved in anything, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, they're just ready to go.
They're at that NWO level where they can just walk out, but they're not at the NWO level where people kind of get turned off by it, where they take over the show. They haven't gotten there yet, but they just come out, and it's like, okay, well, we see 2 of them. We're going to see the rest of them momentarily.
And they got a lot of belts, so I think that's why people probably aren't sick of them, where they can kind of do what they want. Because even though the belts are like tag team and NXT, besides Rhea Ripley, I think that kind of gives them some like clout, so they can just do whatever they want. Yeah. So I like the whole chaotic ending of the show. I like that they gave you that impromptu World Heavyweight Championship match with Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn. It was a great match. And then, Judgment Day comes out, and Cody comes out, and Jey Uso. Everybody just comes out, and then, like I said, the agents come out, and then there's the extra security guards, and there was just people diving everywhere. It was like, it was a great way to end the show. I wish all episodes of Raw ended like that. It really gave me nostalgia from being a kid and having Stone Cold Steve Austin out there kicking everybody's ass. But yeah, I think you make a good point, though, because that kind of end is good because it leads to War Games, and they were kind of in the orbit of each other, everybody. It's not like, to your point, the NWO, where they would just end Nitro by beating people up, and that was it. It didn't lead to anything, usually. So this is why it's better, because it actually leads to a match or something, or a pay-per-view. Oh.
Yeah, so, like I said, I'm very happy that Cody gets to, go out there, and I mean, they put out that poster, the Survivor Series graphic with him wearing we'll call it the Sting camo face paint, and I wonder if they'll wear the green camo face paint in the match, the good guys.
I mean, who knows? Because Cody knows exactly what that is, and he might do it.
So who is the person in this match, in this War Games match, that is going to, when it's their turn to enter the cage, they are just going to go in there and kick the ass of every standing adult male in the cage, right? Who's that person? Like, who's like the Road Warrior Hawk, where you're just going to no-sell everything and just walk through everyone when it's their turn? Because it's not really...
It's got to be the good guys. So, I mean, I think process of elimination, it's going to be Jey Uso.
Yeah, I would say, or Cody.
Yeah, it could be Cody. I feel like Cody is going to sell more, though, because he loves the business. For some reason, I'm like, he wants to sell. But yeah, maybe Cody as the 4th guy comes in and save everybody.
Or he could go in the beginning and just be the perpetual punching bag where he's just bloodied the whole time and needs saving.
That sounds more like it, though. I think that's where it's going, yeah.
Where they're just beating on him, and there's minutes and minutes of just Cody bloodied with his blonde hair with the red going through it, and they're just beating on him.
Finn Balor and Damian Priest, just they could definitely do that.
And then I think I have to ask this every year around War Games: who's going to be the Colonel Parker and poop their pants during the War Games match?
I want to. Oh God, I want to say Dom. It's just gonna be Dom, Dirty Dom. All right, he learned it in prison. Sometimes you just got to poop your pants.
Yeah. So, well, We'll see if there's another War Games match. I don't know if they're going to have a women's War Games match or maybe a SmackDown War Games match, like I said earlier. But I wouldn't mind 2 War Games matches of some type.
Don't you think? I don't know if any of the storylines really are pointing towards it, but I feel like they are going to have a women's match, and I think like Kairi Sane and Io Sky are going to be on one team. They're kind of building to that. Maybe we'll see.
Yes, the returning Kairi Sane came back at Crown Jewel to presumably join kind of Damage Control. Yeah. Just to join up with Io.
Maybe they need a 4th person for their War Games match. See, who knows? We'll see where it goes.
I mean, if Dakota Kai is ready to come back, and wrestle.
Interesting, at least. The very least, at least we're like kind of speculating, and it's kind of like cool, and we're going to have some anticipation for it positively, even if it doesn't happen.
And, I still wouldn't mind just one like traditional Survivor Series match. I know that the War Games is now taken over, but just give me 4 or 5 rando good guys against 4 or 5 like rando bad guys.
I went like when I was young, I loved it, and then I went about 10 to 15 years of being like, I hate Survivor Series matches. I don't want these random people together. And now, recently, the last few years, I'm back. I am back, baby. I want the modern day warriors, whatever they were called, against like 4 random bad guys. I want it all.
Yeah, you got like the Ultimate Warrior and the Legion of Doom teaming up, stuff like that.
Yeah. It just kind of makes sense because they all and then Kerry Von Erich was in that, so they're kind of all named warriors at one point. Ooh, that's all you need. Put them together. That's the only reason.
All right, let's move on here and talk about the beginning of 2024 because a lot's going to happen in 2024. But the first major wrestling thing that's going to happen in 2024 is Wrestle Kingdom. And we have some confirmed matchups for Wrestle Kingdom. Obviously, New Japan has their own matches already confirmed for Wrestle Kingdom. I'm not going to go down the whole card, but since we primarily cover WWE and AEW and big shows like Wrestle Kingdom,
yes,
we're going to talk about the Danielson and Moxley bookings there. So Bryan Danielson is both out with an injured orbital bone and scheduled to face Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. So we learned that Danielson injured his orbital bone in his dream match on Collision a few weeks back against Andrade El Idolo. And then he had a match in a tag team match against Okada and someone else, and they were playing it off as if he injured himself in the Okada match, but somehow, whether it was on a collar and elbow tie-up or the match with Okada, Danielson broke his orbital bone, and that put his status for Wrestle Kingdom in jeopardy, because if you think about it, that was at the very end of October, the beginning of November, and Wrestle Kingdom's coming up January 4th. That's literally less than 2 months from now. Kind of a quick turnaround, depending on how bad your orbital bone is broken. I mean, we've seen Danielson obviously come back pretty quick with the broken arm that he suffered in his Forbidden Door match against Okada. He came back just a few months later. He had to fill in that empty spot left by CM Punk and take on Ricky Starks. He said, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, going to Wrestle Kingdom for Danielson kind of scares me with the orbital bone because you're going to have to take about 37 lariatos, hard ones, to your face. Like, maybe you can get away with putting a mask on and, like, kind of wrestling the quote-unquote American style, but you're going to have to take a lot of, like, face area shots, especially against Okada. So I hope he's okay.
Yeah, I hope that he is going to be healed up by then, and I hope that, he does whatever he has to do, I guess, in the match, because let's face it, he's not going to be 100% in time for Wrestle Kingdom.
I mean, I hope he's, like you said, though, I hope he's pretty close because I'm looking forward to it. That seems like it's going to be a banger of a match. The last match they had was awesome. Then he hurt himself, and it was still pretty awesome. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a clean, no one's going to get hurt during the match, and we're going to get like a nice 30, 35-minute just absolute banger.
So we're getting Danielson and Okada in the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Kingdom. We are also getting Jon Moxley. We're getting Moxley versus Ospreay versus Brogan Finley's brother David Finlay, who recently took the IWGP US title and then the IWGP UK title that Will Ospreay had made and smashed them to pieces. And now there's no IWGP US or UK title. So there's no Allied Powers title in New Japan at the moment. And there will be a new title, a new champion crowned with a new championship at Wrestle Kingdom in the match with Jon Moxley, Will Ospreay, and David Finlay in this, championship that will take the place of the IWGP United States Championship.
I wonder if that match is going to have anything to do with another topic we'll speak on soon. If Ospreay wins that match, do you think that means he's definitely not going to WWE? I don't know, because New Japan sometimes they don't care about that. They kind of just will work afterwards. So it's pretty interesting to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, so I just wanted to also talk about that quickly, that match was set for Wrestle Kingdom. But yeah, we can get into the Will Ospreay business next if you want, because where will Ospreay go next? That's the question that a lot of people are talking about online, because Will Ospreay's contract with New Japan is coming to an end. He's going presumably to either AEW or WWE. And, we all thought that he would be going to AEW because he's already been in AEW. He's wrestled there several times. And he even mentioned on Dynamite in the lead up to the Chris Jericho match that when his contract ended, there was going to be a bidding war for him as well. And there kind of is at this point. I think that what it probably comes down to with Ospreay is the fact that he is based out of the UK. So that's a big factor when you're going to be signing with one of two American companies. Really, it's just a matter of, are you going to be required to move to the U.S.? Are you going to try to balance it out where you're flying back and forth? Would you even want to fly back and forth? Yeah. Flying out, is it going to be once a week mostly as far as dates go? Or would it be kind of several nights a week with WWE or AEW. So, but yeah, Will Ospreay, he's going somewhere, and he has even indicated recently that he has had discussions with WWE, and I think Sean Ross Sapp on Fightful reported that they had, made outreach towards Will Ospreay. WWE has, and obviously AEW is in the mix as well. Like I said, he's wrestled there so many times already.
I mean, I would assume he's gonna go to AEW, right? Because he seems like a guy who wants to wrestle. Like he would at least have the option, like you said. Maybe he doesn't want to fly around so often to Japan and back and everything. But I mean, if you're in AEW, at least you have the option to maybe go to Wrestle Kingdom or a couple other shows. Even go wrestle. He wrestled at Impact recently, so it's like, maybe he wants that freedom to kind of do that. He seems like a guy who wants to just go where he can and do matches that he wants. And I feel like WWE is definitely not going to allow him to do that. And I ask you, I wonder, do you think that Will Ospreay would even be as effective in WWE? Because they're probably going to cut off like 70% of his moveset.
Yeah, that's a good question. And let's just get the money part out of the way first, because I'm sure that both AEW and WWE would pay Ospreay a lot of money. And the only thing that you could really... The only logical thing I could see happening here, the most logical thing I could see happening is one side is going to come through with a much larger offer because they really, 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 really want Will Ospreay, right? Whichever side that ends up being, right? So you could imagine WWE saying, "Oh, Tony Khan is going to give you, X millions of dollars. Well, how about, $1 more million, $2 more million? Just make the numbers go up enough where it matters. You're not adding on, we'll give you, an extra 200,000, an extra 300,000. You're saying, let's just throw money at Will Ospreay. That's one scenario, is that it's back and forth. And then he says, well, I'm really leaning towards going this way. I've made my decision. Then the other side comes in with just a monster offer, right? So money is like, if one side's going to pay $5 million and the other's going to pay $10 million, it's like, you're not going to pass that up, right?
Absolutely not.
So there's that. But then as far as, what would it look like for Will Ospreay to be in WWE? Because as I've said, we've seen him in AEW. We can assume and imagine a furtherance of his AEW tenure. But Will Ospreay in WWE, I don't know that they would be able to really capitalize on how good he actually is.
Yeah, like I think that he would still be over. He's a very charismatic guy, and he has a fun moveset, even if he takes away some of those more like dangerous things that he does, dangerous spots. So, but you're right. I don't think he'd be to his full potential of how great he is. Does that matter though? I mean, people are still going to love him, right? It'll matter to you and me or people who've seen him in other places. I think the WWE audience that would take to him pretty well and like the stuff he was doing. But I feel like we would kind of lose something. Like some of the Ospreay fans are used to him in other places. And I wonder if that matters. I don't know. It's very interesting. He's a very interesting one. He might be the first Endeavor like signing too, where they throw a ton of money at him too. That's why WWE's probably in the picture, honestly.
And yeah, you mentioned that with the new company owning WWE, they could kind of take him and make him much more of a well-rounded, sports entertainment, I guess you could say, product, right? We just wouldn't get those 6-star matches, I don't think, out of Will Ospreay. I mean, you might get a lot of 5-star matches. It's just what Will Ospreay brings to the table is, like, there's a few other people as well. He just has that ability not just to do cool moves and have great matches, but just to go, it's like that Shawn Michaels where he's just going above and beyond what everybody else is doing, at the time. Yeah,
exactly. And whenever I think of people who were like big stars elsewhere and kind of got like shut down in WWE, I think it's Nakamura. He's doing great work now, and I love what he's doing. But it took WWE so long to like tap into what it is that made Nakamura so great. Some of his moves got to be taken away. The strong style is not as strong in WWE, And I just don't want that to happen to Ospreay as well,
Oh yeah, I can probably name 5 moves that you just wouldn't see in WWE.
Yeah,
just 5 different Tiger drivers. No.
Oh yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, but like I said, the Nakamura is a good example because obviously he's capable as well of having 5-6-star matches. But you get a certain level with Nakamura in WWE, but you're not getting like all like he could be in the main event of WrestleMania. Nakamura could be, and you're probably not going to see that. And it's probably the same thing with Will Ospreay. Is that you'd get to that certain level. But who knows? He might end up being like a Seth Rollins or a Cody, where he goes there, the machine gets behind him, they give him a little bit of a character to run with, and he polishes up his mic skills. Not that they're bad, and then all of a sudden he's Will Ospreay, the super heat magnet heel, or he's something that we haven't seen yet. That's also possible. But I think if we want to see more of this, Wrestle Kingdom, Forbidden Door, all of these types of matches that we've seen from Ospreay, I think AEW is the place to go for him.
I think so too. I wonder if I know JY is prominent right now on AEW television, but I wonder if like that kind of example might have Will Ospreay hesitate a little. I mean, probably not, but I feel like JY was like underused for a while after he signed, and he's finally kind of like kicking it into high gear with good programs now. I like I said, that probably won't affect what Will Ospreay does, and I think Will Ospreay is probably more of a AEW quote unquote guy with the kind of moveset he has. But I always wonder if that kind of stuff, if people look into AEW now and see some of those signings like they used to at WWE and go like, look at the way they use so and so. Maybe I don't want to deal with that. I don't know.
I think both places actually have new sort of people have new perspectives because now WWE is a whole new place.
Yeah.
Vince is kind of there. He's kind of gone depending on who you ask. He's obviously the mega boss in charge of it all, but day-to-day creative-wise, I mean, I don't know. I'm watching DIY wrestle on Raw, so I don't think Vince McMahon really has that much involvement, right? So
yeah. Bronson Reed, definitely not a Vince guy.
Yeah, so I think that just that whole chaotic thing that might make people not want to go to WWE, I think that might not be there anymore. And then also AEW's got their own sort of issues and, like new like reputational things that they have to worry about as far as like the short notice booking and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get this. I'll bring it back to Will Ospreay, I promise. But like you're talking about the like machine that'll get behind him if he goes to WWE. I mean, look at the babyface pop that the Miz is getting these days.
Yeah.
And he is nowhere near the wrestler of Will Ospreay. So, I mean, that kind of maybe right now is the time to go to WWE and kind of get that push, get that stuff behind you and become like a mega star. I don't know.
I mean, but then alternatively, at the same time, Will Ospreay probably doesn't have what The Miz has, which obviously The Miz is not going to have any 4-star matches, right?
Yes.
He's probably not going to have any 3-star matches, but he's just got this whole like reality TV show host like persona.
Good point.
That Will Ospreay, and like most people just don't have that. Most people when they in wrestling are not popular because they're The Miz, right?
He is an interesting case. You're right, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's very interesting. This is one of the most interesting like free agents around because I mean the next one will be MJF obviously next year too. But this is the start of like maybe this type of wrestler will go to WWE and we'll see. And it's going to be very interesting what happens.
Well, there's definitely a few guys in AEW that I could see. I could, text you 5 names. I think that could end up jumping from AEW to WWE. But I do think that WWE, they probably consider Will Ospreay one of those signings that they want to get. They probably consider him somewhat of an AEW guy because, for one, if he doesn't go to WWE, let's face it, he's going to AEW. And 2, he's already been in AEW, and he just embodies that whole spirit of the hard-hitting 35-minute, fast-paced, lots of flips kind of matches,
Absolutely. That's yes.
So they probably consider him like the next Cody type guy to come over, even though he might, he doesn't have the same, American fan base as Cody did. But yeah. So yeah, so we'll see where Will Ospreay ends up. I probably would be partial to AEW just because, build or no build, he could just go out there and have crazy matches with people like Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, El Hijo de Vikingo. I mean, just Penta. Just the list goes on with what Will Ospreay could do in AEW.
I mean, I agree. Don't you? Doesn't it seem like we're gonna see like seeing Will Ospreay on Collision just seems like better than seeing him on Raw? I don't know why, because of the matchups he could have. Like, I don't know if WWE likes to throw out guys like you said. Just have it's Will Ospreay versus Penta for absolutely no reason, and like no one will care. That's what we love, and he could definitely do that. That won't happen on Raw, so I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, so now let's get to this Superfan documentary that finally came out. So WWE quietly, about a week or so ago, released on the WWE Network and on Peacock in the U.S. the documentary that was supposed to come out last year, the Superfan, The Story of Vlad documentary about the WWE's pretty much longest running superfan, Vladimir, who has been in the front row of WWE shows at Madison Square Garden and other places, in the East Coast and around the Northeast, and also at like every WrestleMania. So he was one of the original superfans that you'd see. I remember seeing him first really at like Monday Night Raws, right? Because I was not really born, right, during the first few WrestleManias and all those Madison Square Garden shows. So my era of just looking at the weird fans in the front row really started with like Raws in like the Manhattan Center and all those shows. So yeah, that was probably my first recollection of seeing this guy Vlad. And they talk on the documentary a lot about what people thought of him and when, the pre-internet days of Vlad in the front row, because he wasn't the only one. There was other guys out there. They had friends. There were these hardcore people in New York. There's people out there that we still see all across the country. They're in the front row. There's the guy with the green T-shirt. There's the Brock Lesnar guy. There's all kinds of WWE superfans. But Vlad really was the first one, and I just thought it was a really great documentary. It wasn't too long. It's about 38 minutes. Really kind of gave you a window into this guy's life, answered a lot of questions that you might have had about his super fandom, and also it definitely goes through some of the issues that he faced and some of the struggles that he's faced in his life, especially when COVID hit. And, go check out the documentary, watch it yourself. I don't want to spoil everything, but you can just imagine being a guy who's gone to he went to every single WrestleMania. I think that was one of the stats they gave. And then that was his life. Like, and this is what they show you in the documentary, that it's not a gag that he just goes to the front row, right, and buys the same ticket. This is his life. And there's a few people that, it's a very big part of their life, being in the front row. I can't imagine the yearly cost of all those tickets.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes. God, can you imagine the cost? I mean, that is like a mortgage payment and a half, I would say.
I was gonna ask you, do they explain how the hell he does that? Because that's the question I have.
They basically just say that he saves his money. He lives a very modest life, and he just saves his money. He has, I will say, he has a lot of souvenirs. Like, he's got the T-shirts that the wrestlers would rip off and throw into the crowd. He had one from the Rockers. Wow. Hulk Hogan. They on the documentary, they show him back in the early days in the 80s. There was one of the Madison Square Garden shows that was recorded, and Piper is in there with someone, and Vlad, of course, is wearing the Piper, the Panther shirt. And
yeah.
He gets on the apron, and Piper asks him who do you want my partner to be? And he just goes, Hulk Hogan! And the crowd goes nuts. And then Piper did team with Hogan a month later. I don't know if Piper was always going to be teaming with Hogan, or if that guy would have just said somebody, if that guy just changed the plans to Hulk Hogan. I don't know if they smartened Vlad up before time. They probably literally just grabbed the guy and said, who do you think I should face next month?
Yeah. Oh, man. What? Interesting.
So he's got that moment. It's probably someone like Orndorff or somebody in there. And then, like I said, they showed him in the early 90s. There's the moment where Diesel is walking down the aisle, and he just goes, "What up, Vlad?"
Oh my God, that's so...
There's footage of him hugging every single wrestler. Even Psycho said when he's top heel, this guy's hugging him. And all the wrestlers would go over to him and hug him over the years, like Shawn Michaels, like I said, Sid, Diesel, awesome. All these guys. And so there's a lot of footage of him, and he's got so much just toys from the 80s and just
of course, memorabilia.
That Rockers shirt that he had was so cool. It's the purple Rockers t-shirt.
Oh man, eventually it just starts to snowball, right? You're there for a few times, you get a couple of t-shirts randomly, and then all of a sudden everyone knows you, so you start getting those kind of things all the time. And then eventually, they're probably they won't comp your seats, especially in the front row, but I'm sure he gets a lot of perks now. Good for him.
Matt Cardona, who is always trying to share relevant Instagram posts from his career. When the documentary came out, he's got a picture of recent indie shows, right, where it's 60 plus year old Vlad, who that's about how old he is. He's 60 something years old at this point. And he's in the front row of an indie show, and him and Matt Cardona are just sticking their middle fingers in each other's faces. It's
hell yeah,
guy's still out there. So he's been going to the shows. He's from Haiti. He came to America as a child. That's the story. There were all the rumors. He was just a fan. He wasn't he didn't know anybody. He wasn't anybody's cousin. He was just a super athletic wrestling super fan. And it talked a lot about how, when the world shut down, it really got to him. And like I said, watch the documentary. It's great. I won't spoil it all here, but the guy has been through quite a bit, and it does have somewhat of a happy ending when he's able to go. This was one of those documentaries where it's when you see the guy, he's finally able to go back to a wrestling show. It's it makes you kind of emotional to see, because everybody had that emotional, oh, wrestling is back, or my favorite thing is back.
Yeah.
But it's for this guy, it was his life. His life was back, And
good. He
got an award from Triple H and Stephanie. It is funny to see him getting an award from, Conference Call Paul, the Triple H we know, who's oh, hey, what's up, Mr. Businessman. And then there's all this footage of him, from back when the 90s when Triple H was wrestling.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see that the documentary is you're excited that he's back to wrestling, you know? Like, in so many documentaries, you'd be like, man, this guy's a loser. But, like, I'm glad it paints him in that way, and we're excited that he's back. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was more content like this about other people and just other people in the wrestling world, because and even wrestlers, you know, whatever, just all of these like these little side documentaries where it's not everybody is going to be the greatest of all time in the Hall of Fame with 10 championship runs. It's like there's a lot of faces and people and personalities and characters and voices out there that make up the world of wrestling that I think could be highlighted, like the way Vlad deservingly was in this documentary. So go check it out on the Peacock, ladies and gentlemen.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that goes for you too, wrestling fan Kris.
I know. I mean, just as an aside here, I think I know this is probably more WWE produced, but Peacock is very good at documentaries.
Yeah,
you know,
the Cody one was great, as we discussed.
Cody one was great. I mean, tangentially, I know this wasn't really WWE at all, but the Teddy Hart one they did was phenomenal. Like, Peacock, you see a documentary on Peacock about wrestling or wrestling adjacent, go watch it. Not sponsored.
Yeah, they're not doing bad there. There was a Ric Flair one on there, I think, too.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get out of here, you know, one thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is this latest run of the person who Michael Cole definitely thinks is the greatest of all time, and that is John from West Newbury. What do you think of this most recent John Cena run for the past 10 or so weeks, wrestling fan Kris?
It's nice to have him, obviously, but I think it's kind of weird. I don't know if he's losing. I don't think he's losing his gravitas. You know, I don't think he's losing his big name. But eventually, you can't just always come in and lose all the time. I know that sounds weird. Like, I know we don't want stars from the past coming in and winning all the time and taking all the heat from everybody, but I don't know. He just kind of seems downtrodden now as a wrestler to me. Yeah. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, I definitely noticed that, because a lot of times guys would come back, and even Ric Flair, The Undertaker, these guys acted like they are back for another run. You know, like The Undertaker never thought he was too old for this. I mean, like he did at times, but he still went out there, right? So for Cena, it's like I don't think he's going to be that guy who is like The Undertaker or Ric Flair, where he's wrestling into his, you know, late 50s, let's say. I mean, because he probably still could do it if he, you know, kept going, as opposed to, you know, being one of the bigger Hollywood actors. And being in every Honda commercial on my television.
God, that's what I think. Maybe that's just me, but that's what I get from him. I get like a guy who's doing this because he can, but he's really waiting to go back to Hollywood. That's what I get from him.
Yeah, and I guess just to follow up on something that I think I said on this show previously, he did get permission from he got written permission from the principal to go back to the wrestling. So from the SAG-AFTRA, he got permission, because, you know, he's an actor and you're supposed to be on strike. So while WWE is a non-union form of entertainment, you know, if everyone who was on strike could just go do some type of entertainment, it would, you know, you want to be striking.
Yeah.
To both show solidarity. You don't just want to go get a paycheck somewhere else while everybody else is on the picket lines, but also to make it so these larger entertainment entities like the studios can't just go to some other form of content and then you'll be right there. It just defeats the purpose. But he did get that permission to go back to WWE. But now that presumably, maybe, possibly, this strike might be either ending or just becoming a permanent thing. I don't know. But so he might be going back to Hollywood. So that would not just make it so we wouldn't see him for a while. At this point, it would probably make it so we don't really see another John Cena run. This may have been the last ride of the Doctor of Thugonomics.
I think as far as a run goes, I think you're right. I think we might see a quick build to a WrestleMania match or something, but we're never going to see like an extended run like this again. I don't think he wants to do it. I don't think the union's going to want him to do it. I don't even think that Paul wants him. Conference call Paul wants him to do it, honestly. So at least he did put over Solo, much better than when he put over Austin Theory at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I know, right? What a difference those two matches where, I mean, he comes in, did the JOB at Mania, pin me, pay me.
That's right.
And then this one, it's like he's letting Solo Samoan spike his face off.
Yeah, I mean, this one was much better. Like I said, I did say he looked downtrodden and kind of like not into it, but this was much better. This is nice if he comes back and does this kind of stuff and actually gets people over instead of like Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan and SummerSlam, the way that Cena had put Theory over, you know?
Yeah. I would love to see a match like that from John Cena where he's just bouncing around the ring, just selling like a lunatic.
That would be great, but
just maybe that should be the Austin Theory John Cena 2, where Cena comes out and he's just bouncing around every corner post, every rope, he's flopping. There's one spot in that Shawn Michaels match where like Hogan like slaps him and he like spins backwards. Just thinking about it, Shawn Michaels, it's as if the ground is covered in soap for Shawn Michaels only. In that
I think there's one spot where it's just a simple chop and Shawn does like a over the top rope to the ground, like doesn't roll on the ground. Yeah,
Hogan's doing that thing where he's like kind of furling his mustache at him, like, "Come on, brother," and Michaels is like acting like incredulous that like he's like, "Oh, I'm so," like he's saying I'm sorry while it's happening. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he just keeps bumping.
That's your head of NXT, folks.
That will never not make me laugh out loud when I see clips from that match. Like scrolling through when someone like wants all that engagement and they're like, here's this clip of Shawn Michaels selling like an insane person for Hulk Hogan.
That's right. It's going to engage me. They got me. So,
but yeah, so for one, give me that from Big Match John, for one. And then two, think about that Austin Theory. What was up with that? I mean, I don't know about any. We've had whole episodes talking about like AEW's backstage heat and drama and this guy and that guy and real glass and fake glass and real doors. And it's like with Cena and Austin Theory, I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. It's maybe there's something there. Maybe there's not. But no, he just.
Yeah, just strange. Yeah.
But for Solo, though, I thought it was Cena definitely also did the job for Solo, just in a much more thorough way. Where, I mean, he just basically took out John Cena, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that was
Legend Killer style.
Very good, yeah. I mean, which is kind of funny, though, because doesn't it seem like Solo isn't, like, he's just kind of like a stooge to Roman? So it is funny that, like, he super put over him super hard to make him look like a guy who's going to, like, skyrocket, but I don't see that happening.
Well, you know, there was a couple extra Samoan spikes in there for John Cena for calling him a Taz knockoff. It's like,
well, you have to do that.
Taz knockoff.
You have to do that, yeah. You can't let that slide.
Yeah. But
I mean, I think we're building now. I mean, I think, like I said, I think the next thing will be, if they really want to do a storyline, it'll be like someone will call John Cena out for being a loser now and that he can't wrestle and stay in Hollywood, and then Cena will come back and triumph. And I don't know if that should be a person on the roster or if that should be like kind of like a legend versus legend kind of thing. I don't know, but that's where it seems like it's going. But to your point, it might not ever be going. He might be in Hollywood forever now and never come back.
Well, according to the narrator of WWE, Michael Cole, we may have seen the last of John Cena. That was a big part of the story here that he had to beat you over the head with, which is, you know, for one, he is the greatest of all time, despite his face being a jack-o'-lantern of Samoan spikes now.
Yes.
He is the greatest of all time. According to Michael Cole, at times has said he is definitively the greatest of all time, but then also it's also Michael Cole's opinion that he's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Depending on how amped up he is during the match.
I think it's funny, too, because when Michael Cole used to say stuff like, this could be the last time we see John Cena, like that was like I perk up and go, that's a lie. Why are you saying it so much, Michael Cole? That's because it's not the last time. But this is a new age of WWE, so it could actually be true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the exposition of WWE has now like turned to instead of being like the most ridiculous implausible statements coming out of Michael Cole's mouth, everything has switched to being like, no, this is canon now. Like, this is the story.
Yeah.
This is the story. I am going to tell you 25 times, but this is the story.
It is a crazy switch. What a narrative change in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so we get John Cena just walking away, right? Like he had that moment in the ring. It was in Saudi Arabia. I don't know, if he's going to come back for a WrestleMania type of a match. Maybe not this year. If Hollywood is, back in full swing. I mean, we got Peacemaker. We got Peacemaker episodes to shoot here. Please.
And listen, if I got to be honest with you, I'd much rather see that than him wrestle. To be honest,
at this point, yeah, it's like I would much rather take a 10-episode season of Peacemaker, please.
Yes,
please. But yeah, so he got his moment in the ring there. He kind of said goodbye to everybody, like nodded, and then walked up the ramp, just dejected. He just looked like an old man who just had to like fight like at a park, like he just got into a fight.
Yeah,
and he also had like the flu. Like he just was like shivering and kind of hunched over. He looked like he just got his ass kicked, like while he had the flu, and he's just like, well. Going back in the house now.
It was kind of pathetic, to be honest.
That's what I mean. It looked like, he looked like a shell of his former self.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if that's the last like image we have of him, even if it's just for like a few months. Because it was bad.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, if we don't see John Cena, if we can't see him, if we don't see Cena come back, it'll just be because he didn't want to, right? It won't, like, I don't think he has any of these crazy injuries that we hear about where people's bodies are ripped to shreds. He might have something wrong with him. Nobody's, perfect. But I don't think he's dealing with this whole, like, oh, my back, I'm on borrowed time because of my neck or my back or my knees. I think that he just prefers working with James Gunn, and who wouldn't?
I always think, I'm no actor or wrestler, but I always like think about when The Rock came back for like WrestleMania and I think it was when he was beating up Eric Rowan, and I think he like tore his tricep or something, or his pec. And like, why would you want to risk your acting for that? So I don't think John Cena is going to be, if he doesn't want to do it, that'll be the reason.
Well, yeah, they also won't let him when he has.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because he mentioned it. He said something like, there's a lot of other people involved with these movies, like the whole production, right?
Good point. Exactly.
It would be shut down. It wouldn't just be him or the director or the studio, right? It's like, you tear your quad or something and then you can't film your movie. It's like, well, the movie's done.
Yeah, that's bad. That's a lot of money. Yeah, exactly.
So we may have seen the last of John Cena, folks. But I mean, do we even need to address the fact that they call him the greatest of all time? Like, you know what I think when I hear that? He's kind of like the greatest at something. Right? Like,
sure.
Wouldn't he's like the greatest at being John Cena. Like, I don't know. Because when he comes out, when you look at him, he's got the color-coded matching t-shirts. Like, he looks like a cereal box, just like The Rock said about him 10 years ago, right?
Yes.
And he's like this caricature. But obviously, he is one of the best wrestlers of all time, even with only doing the 5 moves of Doom. So it's like he's known for only doing 5 moves, but then you also have to give him credit as being one of the best, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like he's the best at that, whatever that is, because it is a big feeling when he wrestles. He is better than most of the people he wrestles. You know?
Plus, he made money. That's the thing too. That always counts for me. If you can make money, that has to give you a slight edge. Somewhere. It doesn't make you the best. Like, you can't, if you were like if he was a terrible talker or a really horrible wrestler and made money, it doesn't mean you're number one, but that's one of the things I think that factor in.
And I mean, it's crazy how many eras of John Cena we've gone through, from when he was on the come up, where he's got like the New York City crowd going nuts for him at WrestleMania 20. And like, he's the next big thing, even though obviously Brock Lesnar was the next big thing and was around at the same time. But, he's winning the championship at WrestleMania 21. And then he becomes this like champion repeatedly to the point where everybody just boos him. He's like the uber babyface who's never had a heel run, yet he's one of the most booed wrestlers. He's got there's the chant of John Cena sucks, right? John Cena sucks. There's let's go Cena sucks. It's like he went through that half hate him, half love him phase. Then he went through just everybody hates him. Then now he's in kind of like, well, he went away for a while, so when he comes back, you kind of realize how good he was.
Yep.
And when he's not being shoved down your throat, there's no reason to really boo him, even if he wears goofy wristbands.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting. He is an interesting case. I mean, for me, I was in high school when he first came out and he was doing the rap gimmick, and we loved that. In my high school, we thought he was the coolest guy. We all loved him. He was so fresh, and I loved everything about him. And then, he kind of got stale. I kind of like lapsed for a while, and that was his big run when everyone hated him. But then I kind of started to respect him too. Like when he goes into Chicago, right, and he loses to CM Punk. He goes into One Night Stand and loses to Rob Van Dam. Like the guy has he kind of has like a eye for the business too, like a mind for it. So I respect him for that. And that's when I started to like kind of turn and be like, this guy is great.
Yeah, and that's kind of what puts him at that kind of greatest of all time stature as well, is because, like you said, Money in the Bank, ECW, he'll go in there and obviously lose. Right?
Like when remember when Suplex City started and he got destroyed by Brock Lesnar? Like those are things like you got to respect him for that.
He had like 3 different times where he just got killed by Brock Lesnar. There was when Lesnar first came back after his UFC run, when remember Hulk Hogan was saying that he thought that he wrestled them, but it was really Brock and Cena. I think it was like 2013. Yes. And it was like the night after WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar comes back. They have that match. Brock destroys Cena because he's coming off a UFC run. It's like, you can't be, you got to show these phony balonies what's up. But then there was the next time around, like years later, where they had this. Was it years later, or was it just the next SummerSlam where they had just all suplexes for dinner?
Yeah, and I think that was pretty. Maybe not. If it wasn't the next SummerSlam, it was just a year later. But yep, that was the origination of Suplex City to me. Like, oh man,
oops, all suplexes.
Yeah, just.
But yeah, so. I do hope we see John Cena back, whether it's for a one-off 3-minute WrestleMania match, hopefully more than that, or another 10-week run where he puts somebody else over as needed. I mean, you got to give it to John Cena, though. He got a better deal than Kurt Angle for his last match, because Cena got to lose to Solo Sikoa, and Kurt Angle had to lose to Baron Corbin.
Yeah, and presumably John Cena went to Saudi Arabia and made millions and millions. Whereas who knows what Kurt Angle made to take that Baron Corbin job. Hopefully it was millions, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know. But, so before we get out of here, last topic I want to get to on the show is the renaming of Impact Wrestling back to TNA. This is a few weeks old at this point, but we haven't had a show due to our vacation/hiatus, but we're back now, so I wanted to take some time to talk about TNA. What do you think of that?
I mean, I know they do good work. I know Impact has a lot of very high quality wrestlers, and I know there's a lot of good shows, a lot of good matches in there. So I hate to say this because maybe I'm wrong, but like, who cares? That's how I feel about it.
Whoa, who cares? Yeah, okay. What else?
Because I mean, hopefully it works for them, because I do think I like having another. I'm glad there's multiple wrestling companies that people can go to and that we can watch and go like, oh, I heard that was a good match, and we can go watch it. And there's a lot of good work. But I mean, what's the big deal? I know there was a revolt when Hogan and Bischoff came in and changed it. I know they took is the 6 sides coming back? Do they have 6 sides? Is that next? I don't know.
Well, apparently that ring is not good, for the wrestlers. Oh, bouncing around the 6 sides is not.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, hopefully it does bring some nostalgia for them, and they get a little more hype, because that roster's a good roster. So if that brings more attention to them, hopefully, even if it's just a few eyes, I'm glad for it. But I mean, I don't know.
I want to get to the nostalgia aspect of the TNA name in a sec, but just to mention that you said that they have such a good roster. I was looking at a few photos that the Impact roster took at their Impact 1000 tapings. Yeah. And for one, the roster's pretty big. They have a pretty big roster in Impact. Yeah. They've quietly assembled this super, super talented roster, right? They've got Trinity. They've got Mike Bailey. They've got all these people in Impact. Brian Myers is there. The Dudley Boys were in Impact recently.
I mean, Steve Macklin's pretty good. I mean,
Deonna Purrazzo.
Oh yeah,
and the list goes on. Moose and Fandango was in the picture. I don't know if he's signed. I don't think he is. But so they have this pretty good, very good roster. And it kind of snuck up on me how good their roster is relative to kind of their current place and how much kind of like the market share they have in wrestling right now, which is, frankly, very little. That's kind of part of probably why you said, like, who cares what they're called? Because, if you have time to watch an extra wrestling show, you're probably going to watch NXT or Collision or maybe, Dominion or Wrestle Kingdom. So Impact might not be on your list. And and especially like if you're like us, where you're psychos who want to drive to sketchy areas to go watch people do flips inside wrestling rings, it's like you already don't have time to watch shows like Impact when you're watching some of these same people on the weekends in real life.
I mean, honestly, this is probably wrong of me to think, but I mean, that next Blitzkrieg show that's in Holyoke has a great card, and I'd rather watch that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like that's going to be more fun.
CPA versus Logan Black.
I mean, come on.
That's what's
up. Man, Grizzly Young Vets are going to be there. I mean, it's just a crazy card.
But
it's
which we
sorry, yeah.
I don't know if we might be in that one. But yeah, but just back to Impact. Yeah, so the roster is crazy good is the way I'd put that about the roster there. And then as far as the going from Impact to TNA, I think it's just a nostalgia thing that they can benefit from. Because really, the question is can there be a whole nostalgia promotion in wrestling? And I think there absolutely can be, right? Because TNA and TNA Impact, the show, as it started, it was like after WCW and ECW folded. Obviously, we all know the story of Impact with Jerry Jarrett starting it up, right? One of the many times Jeff Jarrett tried to come up with the next WCW, right?
Yes, yeah.
And it had this sort of like feel about it, whether it was the Six Sides or the X Division or the fact that it just nobody knew how big or small it was going to be in those early years. And then there were kind of these long periods where it was just very much whatever it was, the same thing for like 5 years, right? So then we had those, like you said, the Hogan and Bischoff years where it was just probably some of the worst wrestling of modern times, right? The worst television going.
Yes.
And then they kind of came out of that. All of a sudden, they're shedding the dead weight. All of a sudden, Pentagon is the world champion. Like, what the heck is going on? They've got guys like Pentagon, Brian Cage. Now it's this new thing where they've got some of the old veterans like, Shelley and Sabin, but they have all these new guys. And it's almost like Impact is like an indie show again, because this was in the pre-AEW time when there wasn't an AEW to sign half of the indie wrestling world, the better half, basically. So Impact was benefiting from that. So they kind of got back on the map. But then it kind of just ends up being where once there is an NXT and there is an AEW, well, Impact doesn't really have its own lane, so to speak, right? So now that they're going to go back to TNA, I think that if they play up the nostalgia of TNA, like, it's a real shame that Don West is passed away, because they could do so much great stuff with Don West if he was able to come back to TNA.
Absolutely.
But I hope that it doesn't end up just being Impact Wrestling, just now called TNA. Like, you need to try to find some of those old timers, not the Hogan types, but I mean like Amazing Red, I don't know what Kurt Angle's doing. I think whether he signed to a Legends deal with WWE, I don't know. But
it's hard because like the guys I think about, Jeff Jarrett and like AJ Styles and those kind of guys, they're already signed somewhere else. So
yeah.
To your point, who are they going to bring in? I mean,
Samoa
Scott
Joe.
D'Amore's been there for a long time, so that's good that he's there. But like Don Callis won't be there. Those guys that I think
Callis, not a fan of the wrestling business. I came out of my job. That was where I first came up with the Don Callis impression. Was like, I was working for the Canadian government, that I got back into the wrestling business.
I love it. I mean, I think to your point is right though. They better have a plan. And I feel like they do, because they're starting it in the January pay-per-view, or so it's like new year, it's TNA again. This is how we're gonna do it. So it doesn't seem like it's a like spur of the moment, quick thing. It does seem like they have a plan, so we'll see where that goes. But I'm happy for him. I hope it works out. I hope it's a little bit better because like you said, the roster is good, and I know they put on quality matches.
Scott D'Amore might be a man of his word, but he's a carny. Tommy Dreamer is I can't even say. Tommy Dreamer is a carny.
That's the only thing I don't like about Impact. He's on the roster. Never mind.
Tommy Dreamer is the biggest carny in the wrestling business. I'm not a fan. I'm not a part of the wrestling business. I'm not a fan of the wrestling business. I'm not a fan of TNA Impact. I'm not a fan of the Impact Zone. Not a fan of Orlando, Florida. I've never been to Orlando, Florida. I've only been to Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so just final thoughts on Impact. Like I said, they have a great roster. I hope that they can get some buzz and capitalize on the switch back to TNA. I think because there is a nostalgia piece to it. There is something that fans of the early TNA days, just like nostalgia with anything that's right around 20 years old, it starts to become cool again. So
yeah.
But my whole opinion of Impact being cool was 100% due to the Amazing Red being featured in the early days of TNA. So unless they're getting the Amazing Red and the Bookers over in Impact or at TNA, excuse me, I might stick to just watching House of Glory.
Hey, we'll see though, man. You never know. At least it's something to look forward to. At least we can check in for a second and see what happened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm obviously tuned in. I'm interested to see I follow Impact. I don't watch every episode, right? But I watch the bigger shows, so
sure.
We'll see. But yeah, like you said, a lot of their talent is basically in AEW. So
yeah. From
the earlier days. Maybe they could get Booker T back. Maybe Sting, when he wraps up his AEW run, maybe he can go back and they can do the Main Event Mafia again.
Hey, it's about time for you, right? It's been a long time. It's about time for a revival. Nostalgic Main Event Mafia. Where's Scott Steiner?
I mean, I wonder if they'll bring back like the Impact Tunnel.
Oh, that's cool. That'd be a cool thing to do, yeah.
Maybe not.
They're the first company I remember who had a heel entrance and a face entrance, so.
Yeah, I mean, AEW does that for sure, but just the tunnel.
They were the first ones I remember, TNA, so there you go. Innovating.
But yeah, we'll see what's next for Total Nonstop, not Dixie.
That's the most important part, I think, so we're good.
That's some nostalgia that I think that they should just let lie, right? That we don't need to go back to that.
Yeah, she doesn't need to come out in the January pay-per-view. Okay, we're fine.
Sometimes I feel a little voice inside me. Is it terrible that I know the words to that song?
It is terrible, and I've completely put that out of my mind, but thank you for bringing it back.
Inside me screaming out. All right, so that about does it for this episode of Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for sticking with us to the end of the episode. We appreciate you as always here. It's good to be back. It's good to be talking about some carny BS once again with wrestling fan Kris. So we hope you enjoyed the episode. We will be back again at either the end of this week or the beginning of next week talking about whatever goes down in AEW on Dynamite. We didn't get to talk about MJF on this episode, his burgeoning all-time great AEW World Championship run, the match with Omega. He's wrestling Daniel Garcia for the AEW World Championship this week. What is going on? So much going on. The world of wrestling never sleeps.
Yeah.
So we will be back to discuss some more of it. So what does this button do?
I'm not the biggest fan of sports entertainment, but that was pretty entertaining.
Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. Who the fuck? Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman.